Hello everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video, I will be sharing with you my top 10 favorite films of 2021, including some films that did not end up on the list but are still worth mentioning. Number 10, A Quiet Place Part 2. Taking place directly after the events of the first movie, we follow this family as they continue their struggle against an extraterrestrial race of creatures that hunt with sound. In the first movie, they discovered their weakness. And in this movie, it posed a very interesting question. Now that you know, what do you do with that knowledge? The film did a great job in progressing the plot and developing the characters even further. This is one of those rare sequels that really justifies its own existence. Number 9, Zack Snyder's Justice League. In this movie, we see Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, The Flash, and Cyborg battle an evil galactic lord who is out to destroy the world. But in order to do that, they may have to resurrect a fallen hero. Now, I don't know if this counts or not because technically this film came out a few years ago. But you know what? I don't care. I enjoyed watching this film. To me, this film will always be a reminder of how a film could live up to its full potential when a big budget studio like Warner Brothers gives its director the creative freedom they needed to bring it fully to life. Number 8, King Richard. Probably the most inspirational film you'll ever see this year. This film depicts the rise to stardom of Venus and Serena Williams because of the help that they received from their loving father, Richard Williams. This was a very moving story about two girls who came from very difficult circumstances and battled so much adversity in order to rise to the top and become the best tennis players in the world. Will Smith obviously gives an Oscar-worthy performance in this film, but I want to make a special mention to Aunjanue Ellis, who plays the mother of Venus and Serena Williams. Will and Aunjanue have a scene together, and it is by far one of the most realistic fight scenes between a mom and a dad that I have seen on film. It was just fantastic. Number 7, Coda. This was a very introspective look at the deaf community, in particular one family of fishermen in Massachusetts. What I remember the most about this film is feeling so much empathy for the main character, Ruby. Ruby is the only hearing person in the family, and the mother and father and brother rely on her so much to be their interpreter as they go about their fishing business. Basically, without her, they would be screwed. And what's even worse, Ruby has an impossible decision to make in this film. She could either go off and live out her dream and become a singer, or she stays home forever being the interpreter of her family. I remember feeling so frustrated for her because this was an impossible decision for her to make. I mean, no matter what she did, she would feel like she was disappointing somebody, either herself or her family. Either way, this made a very compelling family drama. Number 6, West Side Story. This movie is based on the hit Broadway musical of two star-crossed lovers who get caught in the middle of a feud between two opposing street gangs in New York City. Now, I did not expect this film to end up on my top 10 list. Believe me, when I first heard that Steven Spielberg, of all people, was remaking a classic Academy Award-winning film, I thought, why? I mean, I didn't even like the original film, but I gotta say, this film was so much better. It completely blew me away. It is darker, grittier, and it hits the point across much harder than the original film did. Now, granted, that film was a product of its time, and this is definitely a more modern interpretation of a classic story. But it is genuinely the most entertaining film that I've seen this year, and one that has a very powerful and strong message about diversity in America. Number 5, The Last Duel. This is definitely one of the most thought-provoking films of the year as it deals with sexual assault in the medieval period of France. And it's very relevant to the times we're living in now, in particular with the Me Too movement. Just within the last few years, many women have come forward with their own stories of sexual assault and abuse, and the movement continues on to this day, and this film did a great job in contributing to that movement. Jodie Comer is the standout performance in this film as she plays Lady Marguerite, a woman who is not only fighting for the truth, but also her life. Definitely one of the best films that Ridley Scott has ever done in his whole career, and unfortunately, one of the most underperforming and underrated films of the year as well. But do you know what else was underrated? Number 4, Mass. Taking place 6 years after a mass shooting that occurred at a school, this whole film is basically a conversation between the parents of the shooter and the parents of one of the victims. Their goal is to try to talk it out and try to find a way to move on from this tragedy. And my God, the film deals with grief, loss, blame, gun violence. Watching these characters grapple with feelings that they themselves don't understand was just so powerful. One of the things that I look for in any film is good acting. And this film has the best acting of any ensemble of any movie this year. Number 3, Licorice Pizza, a romantic comedy about a child actor named Gary and an older woman named Alana. As we watch these characters go through their own escapades in the San Fernando Valley, we slowly come to realize that despite the obvious differences between the two of them, they may be more suited for each other than they care to admit. I love the aesthetic of this film. This movie looks and feels like it was shot in the 1970s. And once again, Paul Thomas Anderson demonstrates that he can direct the shit out of a film. Number 2, Come On, Come On. Directed by Mike Mills and starring Joaquin Phoenix as a radio journalist who goes on a cross-country road trip with his eccentric but very intelligent nephew. I knew this film was coming out. I've been following director Mike Mills' work for a long time. I liked Beginners. I thought 20th Century Women was okay. But this is definitely his best film ever. I was incredibly moved by this film, just by watching these two characters connect with each other alone. And the film explores a lot of interesting themes, such as growing up, parental responsibilities, and what it means to really open yourself up to another human being. And now, before I get to my number 1 pick, here's a list of a few honorable mentions. And now for the moment you've all been waiting for, my favorite film of 2021. Now the reason this film is my favorite is because out of all the films I've seen this year, I felt like this film was very cinematic, very well written and acted, and it just held a lot of personal meaning for me. Number 1, Spencer. Directed by Pablo Larraín and starring Kristen Stewart, this film is about Princess Diana and her struggles with mental health as she spends Christmas with the royal family. Now, I was very skeptical at first because I wasn't sure that Kristen Stewart was the right actress to play Princess Diana. But after watching the film, that all changed. She delivers an incredible performance. And not only is it shot beautifully with a beautiful score by Johnny Greenwood, but watching this film was also a very cathartic experience because it reminded me that such a thing as depression or anxiety can be beaten. You just have to be surrounded by the right people. People who love you, understand you, and who will always have your best interest at heart. So there you have it, folks. Those are my favorite films of 2021. Thank you so much for watching my video, ladies and gentlemen. I hope to see you again next time.